For activity 1, you guys are going to gain experience observing movement. So this observation concept is a very recurring theme in this class. So since we don't know a whole lot about motor development across the lifespan yet, the purpose of this lab is just to give you the chance to observe movers and practice taking notes on what you see. I have some background information you can feel free to read through. The instructions basically are going to be through your HKPropel account, so if you have not set that up yet, please do so. You'll log into your HKPropel account and find the assigned content for Chapter 1. That will then take you to a screen in which you will choose Lab Activity 1.1 and then watch the assessment videos for Set C. This is what the chapter content will look like in HKPropel. You'll click on Lab Activity 1.1. Don't download any of these document links. I've provided all of your instructions and all of the questions that I would like you to answer for this activity. So once you click on Lab Activity 1.1, just click Next. Then you'll see all of the videos that kind of come with this lab activity. In the top left-hand corner of the video thumbnail, you'll see the set and the subject. You guys have been assigned Set C. There are 4 videos that are included in that, and they start with the little girl wearing the gray shirt. So when I click on her, I see Set C, Subject 1, Subject 2, Subject 3, and Subject 4. Okay, so those are the only ones you guys are going to be observing. You can click play. The first round of each video is going to be in normal speed. The second round will be in slow motion. Once you've made your observations, and feel free to move throughout the video, back up, stop, play, whatever, so that you get kind of a thorough observation of each video. But once you're done with that, you click on this little side arrow, and that'll take you back to the list of videos that you have to choose from. So you'll watch each person, and then once you're done watching your videos, you can either close the content and go back to your activity, or you can also choose to leave the videos open. That way, if you want to go back and rewatch anything, it's still up on your computer. Once you've done your observations, I want you guys to copy and paste the questions for Lab Activity 1.1 into a new Word document. That way I don't get all of the instructions and background information in your submission. And then once you've completed that answer sheet or completed answering those questions, you'll submit your answer sheet to the Activity 1 folder on Dropbox using the following naming convention. So last name underscore first name underscore 315 and the activity number. This will be Activity 1. All of the grading criteria will be based off of completeness and accuracy of response. A more detailed grading rubric is posted on Moodle in the Module 1 content. This assignment is out of 38 points total. And just to review the questions really quick, I do want you guys to type in a color other than black, just because it's a little bit easier for me to grade when your answers stand out from the questions. You can highlight if you want to type in black and highlight in a different color, that's fine. Just make sure whatever your answers are in, it's sufficient contrast so it's not too difficult to read on a white background. So question number 1 is going to be where you put your observations. I'm only requiring you guys to list 3 observations, but if you want to list more, that's okay. Posting them in a bullet list is totally fine. Based off of those observations, you're then going to rank your subjects from least proficient to most proficient. So the person who has the least amount of skill to the most amount of skill, or think of it as most proficient is what you would view as a good overhead throw. Number 3 is kind of pulling out or identifying the key movement features that you use to assign the most proficient label. So based off of that most proficient thrower, what were the things that stood out to you that were different from the other throwers? Okay, again, you could list these in a bullet list or in a nice, concise little paragraph. 2 or 3 sentences is probably enough. For question number 4, you're then going to use that proficiency criteria and then compare and contrast the following pairs of subjects. So looking at the least proficient versus the most proficient. And what you're focusing on in this question is the sequential movements, right? So when you think of a throw, there is a certain sequence of events that occurs, right? So based on the sequence that the most proficient player or the most proficient thrower used, kind of compare that sequence and then see what's missing, what's different, maybe what do they do the same, right? And then just compare that to whoever else is in the pair. For question number 5, we're going to, again, do a little bit of a compare and contrast. But in this one, instead of thinking about the sequence of the movements, we're particularly looking at how far the ball travels while it's in the thrower's hand. So not after the point of release, because in most of the videos, we don't actually see how far the ball travels. But I want you to look at, as they're throwing it up to the point of release, right? How far does the ball travel in that pathway? So things you might look at is if there is a backswing, how big that backswing is, if there is one, right? Do they extend the throwing arm? Is there a follow through? So those are some things that you can kind of list in here. You don't really have to say like the most proficient person did this more than the more proficient person, right? You're just saying what you observed in terms of each subject. For the final question, this is kind of an application question where we are taking the concept of constraints. So if you need to have a refresher on what constraints are and the types of constraints that we have, go back into the lecture material. We also had some examples in the lecture, so feel free to kind of use those to help you make up some examples for this question. But you're going to list 3 possible constraints that could play a role in the performance of a throw. Okay, they can be any of the types of constraints. You can have multiple of the same constraint. All I ask is that you list what the constraint is and then identify if it's individual, task, or environmental. Okay. Following that, you'll give a brief description of how a participant might be constrained by the variable that you've chosen. So once you've completed all of this, again, you're just going to label your file using this naming convention and then submit it to Dropbox. If you have any questions while you're going through the activity, please shoot me an email and I'll get back to you as soon as possible.